if you're a CMO and you're thinking about community, you can't think about community as this moon orbiting the rest of marketing. It's got to be another orbit of marketing. You have a product orbit. You're always talking about product and pitching your product and making your product relevant. You have a brand for your company, and you have a community, which is just a third orbit of the marketing tools and audiences that you're going after.
Oh yes, this is the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. Today's show is sponsored by Ringmaster, on a mission to launch B2B podcasts that create relationships, generate revenue, and drive growth. Ringmasterlive.com. Bam. Here we go. Oh man, here we are. This thing is happening, and I hope you're caffeinated because the information is about to flow. Super excited for today, the conversation. The person I'm interviewing is absolutely amazing. He is the one to watch, the one to learn from here. So excited to interview him, the marketing leader, a thought leader, a community whisperer, an author, an advisor, one of the top CMOs in the DC area. He's won Marketing Department of the Year. He's built a community of 40,000 people strong that survives to this day. Author of a bestseller, Unfair Mindshare. Chief Marketing Officer at Katalon, Derek Weeks. Welcome to the show, sir.
Casey, it is good to be here. That was a nice introduction.
Well, you're a busy guy. Oh my gosh. I don't even know how you're here for the moment. So I gotta capture you while you're here and learn that from you. And man, so I'm gonna pass you. I'm gonna pass you this thing. It's heavy now. Okay. All right. Here we go.
Man.
Grab that.
Okay.
You grab that.
I got it.
Take Thor's hammer and smash for me some kind of marketing myth, bogus strategy, misconception. Set the record straight once and for all.
The thing I'm going to totally smash now and through this conversation is that marketers have to always talk about themselves and their products and their companies to stay relevant. And it's just simply not true. It's part of being genuine as a marketer is what makes you relevant. Being helpful is what makes you relevant. And a lot of marketers out there kind of, they look at their tool chest and they say, the things that I'm supposed to do and the thing that I was hired to do was to always talk about our products and our company and our brand. And the more we talk about that, the more we're actually doing our job and creating demand and, all of that. And make no mistake, that is part of the role of marketing. But if you just rely on only those tools, you're missing out on being the most relevant you can to the biggest audience that you can for your business. That you can do business with. And I think there is an opportunity for people to really help their markets be much more relevant by talking about the things that their markets talk about, their markets care about, their persona, target personas care about. And that's really it. I think too many people rely on too few tools in marketing to make their business as relevant as it can be.
Talk to me about this being relevant. I heard this mentioned several times. This makes you relevant. Tell me about the focus on being relevant and how that makes for good marketing.
Yeah. So there are a number of communities. I built communities that I help manage. I built the community up to 100,000 people with all day DevOps years ago. At Katalon today, we're almost to 100,000. In fact, perhaps at beginning of December now, maybe by the end of December, we'll be at 100,000. We're just around 97,000. I think we just crossed 97,000 yesterday. We usually grow about 3,000 a month. But I've also participated in other communities. And part of the community interaction, even when it's led by a company, and those that bring the most interaction sometimes do talk about a product or something that people have invested in, a product they want to learn more about or interact with more people from. But the communities that stay relevant for longer always bring in an aspect of help me become better at the thing that I'm doing. And the thing that I'm doing is rarely like a product or a company that I'm spending time with like 100% of my day. I probably use 30 different technologies or applications throughout the day. So I'm not just focused on one particular thing as a marketer, but the communities for myself, communities that help me become a better marketing professional or a better CMO and provide relevance in that context. It's not just about, hey, Derek, here's the latest AI tool, or here's the latest ABM tool, or the latest demand gen or social media tool. It's more like, how are you planning your budget for FY25? How do you have a relevant conversation with a board member? How do you recruit the best talent out there? So, like, those conversations are very relevant to my day to day. And yes, tools are also relevant to my day to day, but the people out there that are selling to marketers, and there's a company, Sixth Sense, who I'll shout out to because they do this so well.
Shout out to Latney. Yeah.
Yeah, Latney and crew, they've got a whole team of excellent people. Um, but they sell solutions and account-based marketing and other things. I've been part of their community for 4 years. I've never been a customer of theirs, but every Friday morning at 8 a.m., I am on a call with them to talk about things that others talk about as CMOs. There's only CMOs. This morning, 8 a.m., there were 121 people on this call. And we were talking about, the implications of AI based like SDRs and account management and demand gen using AI bots effectively to respond to incoming calls. But then it was a very open conversation that was not vendor pitching anything. It was just, here's how we do things. Others were chiming in. Here's how we do it. Others chiming in, being curious. And that conversation helps me as a marketer. But when I think about when my business is ready for investing in an ABM solution like Sixth Sense, are they going to have a seat at the table? 100%. They will get a seat at the table. You have a chance for us to do business together. And that's because they've helped me in my career. They're discussing things that are relevant. They're not pitching 100% of the time. So if I had to go to Latney and her crew, and every time I was interacting with them, they're like, Derek, when are you going to buy? When are you going to buy? You haven't bought yet. When are you going to buy? I'm not going to have that trust built with them as a vendor. And I think they've done a particularly good job at that in the communities that I've built and run. I've done similar things. And those communities start with not talking about yourself is the first rule and being helpful, right? And if you can start with being helpful without start with being pitchy all the time, uh, I think it just adds another layer to marketing. And I'll say when I was doing this, when I built this 100,000 person community with some colleagues and a number of friends, we didn't look at it as our marketing was all in on this community thing. It was 5 to 10% of what we did, but it was a really relevant part of what we did that helped us attract and maintain a really large audience that helped keep us as a brand much more relevant in the market that we were participating in.
Right. Wow. And not only do you have a seat at the table, Sixth Sense, when that comes up, but you mentioned that trust that they've developed with you because they've continued to deliver and they haven't screwed it up along the way. They haven't harassed you to buy. They haven't hit you with SMS text messages until like the political ads we had, like they haven't So they've just built this relationship of, well, you know what? It's almost up to them to screw it up when the time comes, you know? Like you'll probably check a couple out to do your due diligence for your company, but man, and this reminds me of like the old school HubSpot where they just, they were teaching inbound to people. So a lot of marketers just grew up learning sort of inbound from HubSpot. And so when it came time to turn to someone, they definitely had a seat.
Yeah. And I think it's a really good point about the trust that you build with these communities. And there's part of like, there are two different types of communities generally I talk to people about. One is a product community. So you bought my product, you're here to learn more about it. We have others that are using the product that you can learn from. And that's the 100,000 or nearly 100,000 that we have at Katalon. That's really that. It's a product community where people come together, learn about our product, get trained on our product, certify on our product. They write, have various conversations in our discourse community about the product or how they're using it. And we're trying to be as helpful as we can in that community. And then there is the community that is, and people don't expect to be pitched in that environment. They expect to be helped. And then there's a community of interest, which is just, hey, I don't necessarily need to know or want to know about your product, but I want to know how to be better at my profession. And so help me with relevant topics that I want to learn about. But when you establish the promise of a community, we're going to help you learn. We're going to help you be the most relevant within this community. We're going to help you have the most relevant conversation to you to help you learn about this product or to help you learn about this subject matter overall. The trust can be broken very quickly if you break that initial promise. So if I tell you, Casey, come to this community where all these marketers are hanging out, we're having great conversations, and we can help you become a better marketer, and there are no product pitches. And you're like, that's great. Like, I want that. I'm in. And you participate for 6 months or so. And then by happenstance, the person leading that community leaves, goes to another company, gets another job, and they replace that person with, Bob. And Bob is like, the problem with, Sally, when she was running this community, was she never talked about our products and she never pitched them. I'm going to start pitching everyone in this community. And all of a sudden the flavor changes. The brand promise of that community and what it offered was broken. And it can very quickly erode from, we spent months together building this relationship and building trust. And there was this mutual promise of how we all come together. And when you change that, it can really erode trust in the audience to say, that's not the thing I was coming here for. And that's not the thing that I then want to go back and engage in. Right. So making sure that the promise that led people there maintains itself. So when I was running the 100,000 person all day DevOps community, we told people, we're here to help people. There's no vendor pitches. The community is free. It doesn't cost anything to join. And people are going to be treated fairly in this community. We're not going to discriminate. We're all about any access to information and education for anyone. And we kept that promise for the 6 years that I ran that community. I joined this 6 Sense community that every Friday morning, 8 a.m., we're on this call. I think I joined 3.5, 4 years ago. They have yet to break the promise of, nope, there's no vendor pitches, not even from 6 Sense. They don't pitch. They're never recorded, right? So we can say whatever we want, right? There's Chatham House rules, so you can say what you want, but it's not going to leak out elsewhere. Like I heard Derek Weeks on this chat this morning say whatever, and someone post that on LinkedIn. Like, there's no like, hey, there's some vendor hanging out in the room that sees, oh, Derek is one of these CMO. Let me go and pitch him off to the side. And when that happens, we're like immediately like, hey, not allowed. And we tell the organizers like, hey, this is happening, and they don't show up again. So if there is someone that's like agitating the brand promise, they're immediately removed because it keeps the kumbaya going that we've had for so long. But it's super important that when you build brand trust, that you stick with that brand. And I think that's part of, being consistent in marketing goes a long way in community, but it also goes a long way in your, any brand. For Katalon, where I am right now, being really consistent about who we are as a brand, what our products stand for, how we look at innovation, how we, you know, manage and treat and work with our customers. It is very important that that consistency remains true so that if you were a customer of ours a year ago and you left and got a new job and went somewhere else, and then you're like, hey, I like those people. Let me go back. When you go back and try and engage, you want that same feeling that you had before. And if it's not consistent, if some dynamic change, you're like, I don't think they're the people that they were before. I'm not sure I want to hang out with that crowd. I'm not sure I want to do business with them. Right. So consistency is absolutely key.
Got it. Consistency. You know, how because it was funny. You were talking about the product community, the interest community, and then I jokingly wrote down the pitch community. Like no one joins a community that says, "Listen, you join this thing, we're gonna pitch the hell out of you." Maybe someone should make that. I don't know, but like we're gonna pitch the hell out of you. We're gonna sell to you constantly every Thursday morning. Join this call at 8 a.m. We're gonna sell your information. We're gonna pitch to you for an hour, and then we're gonna phone. Like no one says that, but
You,
I'd
you
love to.
know, where it kind of brings up a conversation. One of my friends used to do this years ago of, and you're right. No one wants to join a pitch community, right? So what does he do? As a community based effort in marketing, he says, we're going to do cage matches, right? Casey, you compete against Derek, right?
I like it.
We're going to bring both of you on and you're going to pitch. And we're effectively doing a cage match and we're going to invite an audience. They're going to listen to Derek. They're going to listen to Casey and then they're going to vote like who does the best. And you basically line up like, okay, this is going to be good because Casey and Derek know they're in the cage together and they're, competing for kind of the best pitch. So people will show up to a pitch knowing it's a pitch, but there's got to be a bit of entertainment value added to that. If you're not like, hey, Casey, I heard you had a great product. Can I see a demo? Can we set up a call where I want the pitch? Right. Because we get that every day. We get hundreds of people reaching out saying, hey, I'd like the pitch. Can you contact me?
Why you guys versus these guys? Like the idea of adding that entertainment of the combat between, two rivals, throw a Pardot and a Salesforce, HubSpot all together and have it almost reminds me of like one of those debates we had in the past where like all these people and they're just about I could see why you would turn up. Okay, I want to see you guys compete and tell me why you over you, Ooh, that sounds great.
I think that the other thing to keep in mind is, and, tons of marketers talk about this, but relevance is not a one-time pitch. Relevance is a long-term relationship. And whether you do that with your company or your brand or your community, the long-term relevance of marketing is extremely important because, you know, I, I'm sure Forrester and Sixth Sense and, other like marketing thought leader organizations out there will say there's only 5% of buyers in the market at any given time. Right. So you cast a net to this wide audience. Only 5% are truly interested in making a decision on some kind of new product, technology, service, have the budget to do it, or actually pursuing and have intent to, go down that path. So how do you stay relevant to the other 95% when they're not doing that? So, back to that Sixth Sense example, I haven't been in the market for their type of solution for the last 4 years because of, whatever circumstances. But when I am in the market, and I'll probably soon be in the market for that, they're relevant. They've remained relevant to me for a long period of time so that when I am now in that buyer community, I know who to go to. I know who's on my short list. And part of that was because they were super helpful, right? And community is definitely part of that. And I think, going back, let's go back to the myth that was busted, right? People would say, like, I have to talk about my product and my company all the time because I've been hired as a marketer to do that. Isn't that my role? Right. And I think some people are afraid to go to the CEO or the board or anyone else and say, you know what, we're going to invest some time not talking about ourselves. We're going to invest in building a relationship and building relevance with the market that we're participating in because 95% of them are not in the market to buy the thing that we're selling right now. But when they are, next quarter, next year, right? 2 years from now, if we invest some time and money and effort in being helpful and being relevant, we'll have a better shot at getting a seat at the table.
I'm sold. But that little creature on my shoulder pops up, and I get this sometimes when I tell people they need to launch their own podcast, is you get that, "Oh, aren't there a million podcasts? Won't this just be another one? Aren't there a million communities?" Hey, Latiny already has it figured out, right? Every Friday, why should, let's say you're selling also to CMOs, why should there be another community? And then how do you find your relevance, but also how do you make something unique that's worth, like, would you join another community or are you kinda good?
Yeah. In fact, so in my book, I talk about probably 5 or 6 marketing communities that I'm part of. So I'll tell you, I'm not part of 50 communities, even though there are probably 50 communities out there. And part of that is just because I don't have time, right? I definitely make time once a week for an hour on Friday morning for the CMO Coffee Talk community that Latney at 6 Cents and Matt Hines at Hines Marketing.
Shout out to Matt. He's on
Yeah.
here too. Yeah, yeah.
So they've done an incredible job there, but there's also Pavilion, which I'm a big fan of Sam Jacobs and what he's done. Kathleen Booth actually lives like just 45 minutes from me or so. So we get together every once in a while as their head of marketing. They do a great job at being relevant and providing a relevant space for me to go and learn how to be a better pro at what I'm doing. There's a local community here in the DC area called TMA, the group of marketers that got together. I wasn't at the beginning of it, but friends that got together to say, we should just come together and share relevant topics, and have consistently got together. So when, you know, Pavilion has a lot of online engagement. The Six Sense community for me is a lot of online engagement. The TMA community is a lot of in-person engagement. And I look for the balance of those. Like when I'm having a challenge, who can I go and have breakfast with? And like one of my buddies from the TMA community, um, we're on the Six Sense community as well. And he chatted, direct messaged me. He's like, "Hey, do you have time for breakfast on Monday? I need to sit down and chat with you, like chat with someone in person about this issue that I'm facing at my company with my CEO, whatever." And, then we were able to meet for breakfast. It's harder to do that when I'm like, this person lives in Texas. I don't see them all the time. I don't have a personal relationship with them. Um, so there's that balance of different communities serve different purposes, right? And I think like anything, it's kind of, finding the persona that you're going after and finding the market that you're going after. So Six Sense in the like in the CMO community that they have, it's only a CMO community. You can only be a CMO or head of marketing to be part of that. In Pavilion, it's much broader, right? That it's anyone kind of in the sales and marketing and customer success community. And I find value in different interactions with that. In the TMA local community, it's not purely CMOs. There are consultants, there are people that have been heads of marketing, there are people that were CMOs that are now in venture capital, there are people at PR firms, right? But there's a mix of people that are curious about learning to be better at the thing they are and networking locally. So each community has its own value. And I think when you start, just like anything, like why would you build a product? Well, is there a market? What niche of the market are we going after? Who's going to participate in that? When I started the all day DevOps community, there were tons of DevOps community efforts around the world. Some online, like LinkedIn DevOps group that probably had 100, 200,000 people in it. There were local community conferences or regional conferences that happened all over the place, but there was no global forum where people came together. And we said, I think we can build a global forum for people to interact with. And that was the niche that we went after. We didn't try to be local or regional in the way that we set it up. Over time, we evolved to include those things. But I think it's more about finding the niche that you're going after rather than just saying like, let's build a marketing community. Like it's not specific enough. Right. And I don't know why I would join that if it wasn't well defined of like, what am I going to get out of this experience if I join it?
So if I'm hearing you right, it sounds like this bubbles all the way back. It's not just in isolation of I'm making a community or a podcaster. This is what is the niche that you are serving, that your company is serving, and then from there it may illuminate what your community serves.
Yep. And the other thing about this, and we haven't touched on, is a number of organizations that start a community. And like first, like where does the community sit in your business? Is it part of marketing? Is it part of product? Is it part of customer success? Is it its own thing that exists out there? And a lot of community people are like, we want to be protective of our thing. So we can't be in marketing and we can't be in sales because they're going to make us pick those functional areas of the business are in continual pitch mode. So we can't live there. And I think that the book that I wrote was really saying, if you're a CMO and you're thinking about community, you can't think about community as this moon orbiting the rest of marketing. It's got to be another orbit of marketing. You have a product orbit. You're always talking about product and pitching your product and making your product relevant. You have a brand for your company, and you have a community, which is just a third orbit of the marketing tools and audiences that you're going after. And not only is it an orbit, but there's an ability to connect the orbits together. So if I go out, we'll use a specific example that we're doing now. So let's say at Katalon, we've got 100,000 person community that's in the software testing professional space. I can go out to this community right now. We're running a state of the industry survey, right? Let's go out and survey the community. And in fact, we can even survey beyond our own product community, but just figure out like, I don't care if you're using our products or not. And in fact, the state of quality survey that we're doing now, I don't even think mentions our product or our company once within the 30 or so questions that are in it. So we go out to this community and we survey the community and we even ask them for input. Like, here's some questions that are open-ended that we want you to answer. And we actually might include your answer in the report itself because we want this to be community-based in itself. So the community effectively helps us build data about what's happening across the market. And we put that together as a thought leadership piece based on that work with the community. But now we look at how do we connect that community effort with our company effort. So let's take the survey and produce a survey report. That's a piece of content that's coming from our community. We could go out to industry trade shows or events and apply to the call for papers and say, we're not going to come and talk about ourselves and Katalon and our products. We're going to come and present the state of the industry topics to tell you what's happening out there. And we have, like last year, we had about 3,000 people participate in our survey. So we're immediately going and saying, hey, audience, do you want to know what 3,000 people in this profession have said is relevant to them? Let me tell you the state of things. People want to hear about that. They find that helpful. And they're now coming and recognizing, oh, Derek is someone at Katalon who's being helpful, not being pitchy. Let me find out a little more about what that company does. And maybe they visit our booth at that trade show, or maybe they've attended a webinar where we're talking about that. And then we bring people closer into the fold. We can have our VP of strategy or our CEO or other people around our business talk about, hey, here's what the survey said. Do a 30-second, 60-second video clip, put that on LinkedIn, bring those people closer to our brand, and then invite them to something that they might have to register for. And if they register for that, there might be a follow-up that says, hey, by the way, if you're interested, we have a free product that you can use. You might want to try it out. We have free online training and certification as well. And when you're signing up for those things, we can begin to nurture you in the product or company specific things that could start with the out in the community orbit, but then we bring them closer in over time to the product orbit. And it doesn't happen like, Casey, you took my survey yesterday. I bet you're interested in getting product training today. It doesn't happen like that. It happens more organically where, Casey, remember that thing, that survey you took? Well, it's now 2 months later, we have the survey report and here it is. And by the way, next month we're hosting a webinar that you might want to attend where we're talking about that. And we're going to be at this event, in May where you might want to come and see us speaking about that. And by the way, then like that kind of relationship and nurturing and being relevant to you over a longer period of time can say, even if you're not in market, we're already building this relationship because we started at this community level with the engagement.
I totally get that. It makes sense. And you protect the orbits, but you have a separate community orbit. I see people floating around there and it doesn't seem like a stretch. It doesn't seem like a bother to say, hey, we, especially with that go between of the survey. I think that's brilliant. But just say, hey, we have this webinar, and it's very clear that webinar is in the product orbit. So you're not saying this is a community webinar. This is over here. We're doing this over here, but we just want to make sure you're aware of it. And if you great, and then maybe that gets you onto that orbit, but you're very protective of your community.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are other things like we did this with All Day DevOps. We hosted an annual conference. We had like 40,000 people showing up to it. We had 180 people from the community presenting knowledge there. Those people came, presented on that day, half-hour presentation. We had someone write up a blog on, Casey, you came, you spoke, we wrote up a blog on your session that was relevant. It was no pitching as part of that. So it was like, here's this knowledge base that Casey shared. Turn that into a blog and publish it. Over a year, we created 50 blogs with, Casey, blogged about a certain topic on DevOps, right? And then we took the 50 blogs and we compiled them and we put them in a book and we published the book. And you could buy the book on Amazon, but we brought the book to industry events and we had book signings because at industry events, out of the 180 people that spoke, there was a chance that like 3 to 5 of them would be at the industry event itself. And we're like, hey, by the way, Casey, your blog, is featured in the book and we're doing a book signing at our booth. do you want to come with the other author, the other co-authors that are here and do the book signing? And you're like, book signing? Like, of course. Like, I want to be, I want to be in that crowd. Right. And then, like, our company is hosting the book signing at our booth, and like, oh, you guys are relevant. Right.
Yeah, it didn't even matter if they're customers, right? They're just experts in the community that yeah.
Completely. Right. But everyone coming to our booth to get the book signed, we were scanning as you normally do at events. But it's not like, it's not the giving away the candy bar or the t-shirt or the, tchotchke, whatever. Is like, I'm giving you a book that you can take home and read, right? And get value out of, that's not about my products. And so I'm immediately like continuing to be helpful, but it's going from, here's a community event that created a piece of content that turned into another piece of content that turned into another piece of content that supported an event. Right. And that takes you from orbit 3 into orbit 2 or 1, where product and brand is more relevant. Isn't it awesome?
Yeah, but, like, it's something I'm really the idea of just giving, right? You're giving things. My equivalent is the podcast where you just I mean, I guess the word platforming has been negative in some time, but, like, you're giving people you're sharing your audience with them. You're saying, "Please teach me and my audience." There's no ask to it. You're just like, "Come," come. I want to give you my attention and my time, and I want it's like a virtual book, but it's like I love the marketing that comes from that approach where it's just it's not about the take.
Let me take it even a step further. Like, when I go back to all day DevOps, it wasn't me creating 180 pieces of content. I created and helped create the forum where the content was being shared. That was my role as a marketer. I created the forum, 180 people from the community that didn't work for us, that we didn't pay, created 180 pieces of content, 90 hours of video content in a single day.
Really?
And it was all, they were being helpful to the community. We were being helpful by providing the forum where that happened. We were being helpful by turning their video 30-minute session into a blog. So we invested in some time and like having someone on our staff or that we paid write up the blog on that. We invested time to publish the book and like organize and edit and put together the book. Right. But we weren't always creating the content. Communities do a great job of creating content. We even do it today. Like, our community our discourse community, Katalon, has 80,000 visitors a week. Some of those visitors come in and ask a question, and others reply and post to it. And that's helpful content that is completely community generated. They're all helping each other. We take a thread between 3 or 4 or 5 people in a week, like, here's a relevant topic. And we take that and convert it into a blog on something that's totally relevant and meaningful and topical. Like, why would I read that blog? Well, literally people this week were just talking about this particular subject. Like, is it relevant? Yep. Is it relevant to the ICP that we're serving? 100%, because they were having the conversation. We're not making up, like, is this a concern in the market? They created the content. We then kind of gave it a longer tail through, community efforts that then turned into brand related things.
Do you let competitors into your communities?
That is a great question. I think it depends on who you ask. So when it came to all day DevOps and this thing that we were doing, it was really a community of interest. Were competitors allowed in? 100%. We didn't stop anyone from getting in. We had competitors of ours speak at our conference. They weren't allowed to product pitch. And we told everyone, like, okay, some people that speak on topics work at vendors, that it's fine to have them come, but we told everyone, and we did this live event every year. If you pitch, one, we will take you off air immediately. You're not even going to finish your session. We'll just end it because, by the way, we have 5 other tracks going at the same time that you're going. So we'll just end the session and people can move elsewhere. And 2, you'll never be invited back.
Right.
And like, no one, like, and we had people that were helping us run the conference that didn't even work for our company, but they were just part of the community. And they would have, like, I remember the conversations, like my friend Submit is like, this guy is coming up speaking. And like, I've heard him speak at in-person conferences before, and he has a tendency to pitch. So I'm moderating his track and I'm going to tell him like, hey, remember, don't do this. So the community was even watchdogging. Like there's a promise that this community has around the brand and the relevance that it offered, and the community became protective of it. Like, hey, Casey, that behavior is not part of this community. We'd prefer that not be here. And if you're not good at listening, we, it's assist you out the door quickly. And I, some people are like, give people a chance, a second chance or whatever. It's like, no, actually, you know why? Because we have like 40,000 people that showed up and we have 2 people that want to misbehave. And I'm kind of playing in favor of the 39,998 people that play by the rules.
Protect them. Yeah.
Right.
Defend them.
And people really appreciated that kind of, kind of interaction. And again, it's about like, do I, I'm part of what you have in the community is not only building a relationship, but building trust. And, I've said recently, marketers are the architects of trust. And you have to make sure that you maintain that trust that you've built. Like, who is your brand? What's your brand promise? Are you maintaining that? Are you consistent in the relationships that you're building? And when you are, people trust you. When you're inconsistent, it erodes trust, and trust erodes very quickly.
Dang. It's got me nervous and excited at the same time. Okay. So, someone listening to this, myself included, you go, okay, my gosh, I got to launch a community like tomorrow. What is step one? How do I do this the right way?
So say, really, this is not rocket science at all, but it's first question is why?
Yeah. Why?
So why would anyone show up? Right? Not why would they show up the first time? Why would they show up the 10th time? Right? And so if you think about like, I I want a community that's about our products, and I want like people to show up and talk about our product. Like, how are you going to get them to do that? Well, we're going to tell them about our product and like how cool it is. Like that sounds like a pitch. And how many pitches do I want to show up to? Like 1, maybe 10, no, right? So it's a matter of why are you building this thing? And if I told you like, Casey, I'm starting this community, I'm starting a marketing community. You're like, I'm in marketing. Like I get that. Um, what's going to happen there? What should I expect? Right. And it's got to be specific enough of like, here's something that Casey, you find you are missing that you want. And this is really important. It's not about what I want the community to be. It's about what you as the community member need me to make that, right? Back to all day DevOps. I didn't create the content that was relevant and helpful to the community. The community did that. I provided the forum for that content to be shared, right? The reason why people kept coming back to it and why the community grew and why people are like, hey, I joined this all day DevOps community. It's super cool. Casey, you should join this, right? Here's why it's relevant to me. It wasn't about me starting the community. saying, this is what I want out of it. It's more like, what does the community want out of it? And why would they show up? And why would they continue to show up? Right. That, and a lot of people, as going back to the Thor's hammer, right? And why we're smashing this thing is people say, oh, this is great. I listen to Casey and Derek. I'm going to start a community. And they immediately start with, here's where we're going to talk about ourselves and our product. Like, no, no. In order to be relevant to an audience that comes to you over and over again, you need to be relevant to the audience, not talk about yourself. If all, community is like a first date. If all you do is talk about yourself all the time, there won't be a second date,
Yeah.
right? Pitches work that if you're in the market and I'm selling the thing that you're in the market for, then you'll show up to hear the pitch, right? But after you bought, you don't want to show up to the pitch every month or every quarter, right? You did that. It was transactional, right? A community is not a transactional part of marketing. It's the relevance and the consistency and the trust and relationship that's built up with people to say, these people are actually helping me at a point where I'm not in the market. And most of your audience is not in the market.
Man, who are you? How I'm like, my mind's blown here. Like, who take me back in time, little Derek days. Did you know you were gonna be just the community czar and making all these things happen? What was it like?
No, I absolutely did not know. I think that the thing that I started with, and it is just an inherent part of my personality, I think, is I have a high empathy quotient. And I started my career in marketing as a product marketer. And as a product marketer, it's like, hey, what's your job? You can interpret it as maybe two different ways, at least to start. I'm a product marketer. So what's my job? I'm marketing and promoting a product. Let me tell you about a product. And my high empathy quotient said, okay, I'm at this company. They have a product. And I was asking, who's using it? Why would they want to use it? What are the alternatives that they have to using this thing? And because I started with that kind of outside in view of how relevant am I to their day? Am I a minute of their day, an hour of their day, 8 hours of their day? What else is relevant to their day? I had this outside in kind of view of the market and my customers. And I think over time that evolved to say, the more you go after, as you go after a market, how much of the market are you going after? And what can it represent to your business? And I think that it was that empathy outside in looking view that really helped. And part of it as a marketer, like you want to get to the biggest part of the market that you can. And when I was back 3 companies ago and all day DevOps was part of our go to market strategy, that was a community of interest that had 100,000 people in it. There was also a product community that we ran and we had a conference for that. And that drew maybe like 2,500 people a year. Right. But I was drawing 15 times that in the community of interest. And if I think about, hey, if I talk to the rest of the company, hey, I can tell you what 2,500 people are interested in, but I can also tell you what 40, 50,000 people are interested in. As a marketer, data is gold, right? So if you have access to 40, 50,000 people that will tell you something or 100,000 people that will tell you something, your relevance to like, here's why we're going to do this. Here's why the strategy will work because I have 100,000 people telling me. Like we might only have 1,000 customers, but we have 100,000 people in the market that are telling us something, right? All these people are showing up in Germany all of a sudden. Germany wasn't here last year, right?
Right?
Do we have a sales rep in Germany? Do we have partners in Germany? Do we have product documentation in German? Right? All of those things that with the more data become much more relevant to a marketer.
Yeah. Where do you suppose that empathy came from?
It just I think it was something I was born with. Some people are born, with certain traits and personality things, and that was just mine that and I love business, and I didn't know, like, when you're early on in your career, or you've been studying business in school, like, marketing is such a squishy, nebulous thing. Um, so I didn't know that, like, I had a certain personality trait that would fit better into marketing. But I think part of the reason I've maintained myself as being more relevant in marketing was I always cared about the customers, and I almost didn't care enough about our product in the company because, kind of like you said, like, about communities, like, everyone's got a community. Like, I want to start a community. Everyone's got one. Like, I want to sell pens. Like, do you know how many pen manufacturers, sellers there are right around the world? Like, so what's the difference between your thing and the other thing that someone's selling that's just like this? Right. Is like, well, I can tell you how good this pen is all day, but if I actually talk to the people that are using it, like, why are you using it? How do you use it? Where do you use it? Like, that helped me talk about the use that people had for the thing, talk about the life better, and not like, this thing has the best, highest quality ink from this little farm, how it made their whatever. Like,
Right.
like,
Hey, hypothetical question for you if you're ready. Are you prepared? Are you ready for this? Okay.
yeah,
See, I may or may not have a time machine here in New Hampshire. So, come to a conference nearby, community event, swing on up, and you know what? I do. It's in the backyard, covered in a tarp. So you come on over. We use the time machine together, and we go back in time, and you get to go meet yourself a couple days after getting out of school. Right? You just got that business degree. You bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. You get to go meet that Derek. What do you tell him?
I would say two things. One is stay curious, right? Always be curious. And especially I've worked in B2B software for 30 years. It has changed dramatically. Technology as an industry changes so dramatically. You have to be curious constantly. The other thing that I would say is, um, follow the money, and not like go and, find where you can make the most money in your career or whatever. I mean, when you get to a business that has a product or service, understand how it makes money. How do you sell? How do people buy? What does, what engages people? Where does the money come from? How much budget do they have? How does this business make money? Like, do we make money just by selling a product? Do we make money by selling a product that people have to buy into every year? Are they buying services on top of that? Are they buying a product and a service from us, but they also have to buy something from other people? Like, where does the money come from and how does it flow into the organization? And that tells you lessons from the transaction back. Like, how did the pipeline build? How did the money come in? How does the money come in year after year within this business? And where does it come from? Where does it come from through the partner channels? And then also, like, even broader, where's the money come in to support the business, especially if you're in the area where I've grown up, venture back, PE back companies, like, where does that money come from? What does that money want out of our business? Like, why did people invest in it? What are their expectations of that? Be able to trace the money in the organization and understand the channels that deliver money into your organization. And a lot of people are just like, hey, I'm a product marketer. What's my job? I'm supposed to promote the product and they're maybe too narrowly focused on, I'm really good at this functional thing, but because I don't know where the money comes in and out of the organization, I don't know the flow of the business and why the business is relevant. And I think that's a real, you know, a conversation I was having with someone on my team yesterday to say that there's part of the business that this person owns. And I said, the strategy that we have internally is you're going to own this, but we're going to grow it to include these other things. And then we're going to grow it to include this other thing. And that might not happen for a couple of years. Right. But if you don't understand how all of this connects and how we make money and how this part of the business runs, it's going to be harder to develop strategies to say, I'm laying the groundwork for that growth to happen. Right. If you just stick to I was hired to do this in this realm, and you don't look at the overall business and how the business operates and makes money, you're going to limit the value that you could bring to the organization.
100%. You become expendable at that, but you're
It's just, are you a strategic contributor or are you a tactical contributor? And if you want to be a strategic contributor, you have to understand how the business works. And really, like, how does it work? How much money are we spending? How much return are we getting from that spend? Is it efficient? Could we make it more efficient? Are there more channels? Are there some channels that are more efficient than others within that? Because when it gets to the board meetings, like, it's pretty much a lot about that. How much are you spending? How efficient are we? How much revenue are we getting, from that investment that we're making? And it all ties to, like, do you know where the money goes and flows in the organization? And you have to be curious about that. It's because no one just comes out and tells you. Like, maybe if you work in finance, like, it's more obvious because you're dealing with that every day. No one will come out and tell you that. It's almost like it's not a secret in the organization because I don't think people would necessarily hide it from you, but not that many people care about it. Like, what instance, I'll say, I have a budget for my team and it's several $1,000,000, right? And it has people and program budget. Everyone can see what the total people spend is in my organization. Everyone can see every line item of the budget of program spend. Everyone on my team has access to it. I don't hide it from anyone. Now, how many of the people on my team care about what's in there? Right? Not many. Let's say under 10% of the people on my team actually look at the budget, care about the budget, want to know how it works. But and then there are those that don't, that are like, "Hey, Derek, we need money for this." I'm like, "Where's it going to come from?" And then I'm like, "Look at the budget for your department and tell me where that comes from." And they're like, "Oh, it doesn't just grow on trees. It's not just like this, like, we've got millions of dollars to spend. Like, obviously we can spend that." I'm like, "Nah, if like, we could spend on that, but we have to spend less on something else. What do we spend less on?" And I'm like, "We need to look at the budget." Right. But a lot of people aren't curious enough to look at and understand it. And part of it is, if you ask the people that know, they're more than happy to share with you because, like, it's better when more people know about where the money flows. It's easier to manage the business.
Well, shout out to people on your team that made it this far because they're probably the ones we don't even have to tell them because they listened to this whole episode. They wanted to learn from you on this pod, and or maybe your future team is hearing this and they listen this far. They're the ones that are going to be asking the questions. Like I heard, ask the questions that your boss would ask, or what questions do they need to answer? And you're right, the budget doesn't magically come from here. Okay, maybe it's less over here, but more over there. Now that would be an answer, right? If someone needed budget from you and, hey, you know what? This doesn't seem like it's performing, but we could do it over here. Okay, now it's a conversation, right? It's not a magic conversation. Now you gotta test assumptions and move forward here, but it's not a guaranteed yes either, but at least it's like a an 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 educated
Yeah, and it's not
conversation.
hidden, like, from the beginning, like, when I came in day 1, I'm like, "Everyone's gonna see the budget," because I'm not holding any secrets about where money is being spent, like, it is what it is. Like, the board gave us X amount, approved X amount for us to spend, like, that's it. It doesn't magically, like, grow 20% in the middle of the year for, like, no reason. Like, we have financial discipline in the business that says it is what it is, and this is what we're managing toward. But then again, it's no surprise to anyone when they're like, "Okay, yeah, it was visible from day 1, and I see it, and everyone else sees the same thing."
Oh, I love that. Where can people reach out, connect? Where you want them to learn more? Maybe future people. Is your team looking for anyone? Like what? Where can they go?
At the moment, my team isn't hiring, but, Katalon in general, is always hiring. I think we hire a lot of people. So I would say, not if you're non-marketers, but you're in, tech and software, definitely check out our jobs page at katalon.com. But the easiest place to find me is on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn constantly, throughout the day. And, you know, I've I've said this to other people, and I don't think people take it as seriously, or just follow up on the opportunity. But so few people on LinkedIn reach out to be like, "Hey, I'm looking for help on something," right? Or I just, I want to follow something, or like, I have a question about what you said. It's those people that follow up. You'd be amazed how many responses you would get in that forum from people like me, because for the most part, LinkedIn is like, how many people reach out to me today? Probably 10 vendors will reach out to me today to be like, Derek, I have something to pitch you. I don't know you, but I have something to pitch you. Right. And so when you get someone that, is listening here that reaches out to like, Derek, I have a question on this thing that you said, I'm probably going to answer it, because I don't actually get that many of those kinds of requests. So I just leave it up to your listeners to say, I do have a question for Derek. I'm going to reach out and DM him on LinkedIn, and yeah, I'll respond.
Well, something as powerful as community. I can't see anyone not taking advantage of that. I mean, what a great offer too to say, hey, reach out, ask me those questions. It helps you too refine your approach and thoughts on things to have those questions. Yeah, powerful. And all those links are in the show notes. So you don't even have to type the stuff out, people. Just literally click on the thing, click connect, and ask that question. And for the love of God, launch that community. Derek, thank you so much for being on here. I have just learned from you. I feel like I went to school, but I had a good time, which is so counterintuitive to me. And oh, man, what a great thank you for sharing. I've just been taking notes and product community, interest community, defending your community, the consistency, the relevance, so much powerful stuff in just a little bit of time here. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Loved it. Loved it. Thank
And
you
for
for the
those listening,
opportunity.
oh, go ahead. What was that?
I just said thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, thank you because for those listening, if you learned something, and I freaking know you did, because I literally have 2 pages of notes over here, front and back. I literally ran out of space and had to go back to the front and write it back down again. Um, and like type in little corners here. I start out like double spaced, and then I end up having to go back and use those spaces. But if you learn like I did, and you're gonna launch that community, then share this with someone else. One person is cool. 9,000 is cool too, but like somebody that needs to hear this, maybe they need that community, or maybe you've been to a community that just kind of stinks and they're missing the mark here. Send this to them so that they can hear Derek. Get them lined up, and by all means, get that book, Unfair Mindshare. Check it out, Amazon, all those good places. Go get that book because if you learn from this, this is just a tip of the iceberg. With that, Derek, thank you again, sir, for this awesome combo.
Thanks, Casey.
All right, everyone. This has been a crazy cool episode of the Hardcore Marketing Show. We will see you all next time.